People thought Victor Wembanyama would be just another young superstar praising LeBron James like everyone else. But after LeBron jumped on his podcast and claimed that today's NBA players are better than the legends from Michael Jordan's era, Wemby finally had enough. And what he said next is about to split the basketball world right down the middle. And trust me, you are not ready to hear which side Shaquille O'Neal and Charles Barkley picked. The moment I watched that clip of LeBron, I already knew the internet was about to explode. I'm talking about that episode of the Mind the Game podcast, where LeBron sat down with Tyrese Halliburton and basically rewrote basketball history in front of everyone. He seriously claimed that playing all 82 games back in the 80s and 90s was easier than it is today. According to him, the game was slower back then, and the floor spacing wasn't nearly as complicated as what players deal with now.
Because the game is different. Like, I want people to understand, and our fans to understand, that playing 82 games in the 80s and 90s is not the same as playing 82 games in the 2000s.
Honestly, it started to feel like LeBron James was trying to rewrite basketball history in real time just to make his own career look even greater. But fans were not buying it for a second. That episode didn't just upset a few people. It became one of the most hated moments in the history of the Mind the Game podcast. Even die-hard LeBron supporters struggled to defend it. LeBron called the 80s game slow and crowded. But when people checked the actual numbers from 1986 and 1987, the truth told a different story. The pace back then was faster than what we are watching in 2026. Teams were sprinting non-stop from one end of the court to the other, and they were doing it while getting hammered with hard fouls and almost no calls from the refs. LeBron talks about how tough modern spacing is, but he leaves out the other side of the story. Players in that era were flying commercial flights, sleeping in normal hotels, and recovering without all the luxury today's stars have. No private jets, no giant recovery teams, no endless million-dollar support systems. A lot of fans think this is all part of a bigger plan. If today's game looks harder, then sitting out games suddenly feels more acceptable. That's why people keep bringing up load management whenever this debate comes up. And let's be real for a second. The physical grind back then was brutal. Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson were playing at full speed in shoes that barely protected their feet. Those old Converse Chuck Taylors had almost no support at all. Most players today would be begging for ice packs by halftime. And still, those legends kept going without cryotherapy rooms, custom diets, or personal chefs waiting in the locker room. Everybody remembers how furious Shaquille O'Neal looked after LeBron made those comments. But here's what shocked people even more. It wasn't only the older generation that got angry. Younger stars were upset too. And Victor Wembanyama reportedly took it personally. To him, this wasn't just a bad opinion from a veteran player. It felt like a calculated move to protect LeBron's GOAT argument against Jordan by making past eras look weak. And for someone like Wemby, who grew up studying basketball history, that crossed the line. Fans exploded online. Comment sections turned into complete chaos. People started pointing out that today's harder era also comes with nonstop flopping and foul baiting. So naturally, fans asked one simple question. If today's game is really tougher, then why did LeBron struggle so badly against the Houston Rockets in April? That's when the conversation really shifted, because people started saying you can't call yourself the greatest ever while disrespecting the legends who built the sport before you. For many fans, this podcast moment was the breaking point, and behind the scenes, it reportedly pushed Wemby closer to finally speaking up. Usually, Wembanyama stays calm no matter what happens. But insiders say he got tired of hearing the older legends being dismissed like they were nothing. And that's what makes this whole thing wild. We're talking about a 22-year-old superstar who should be fully on the side of the modern NBA. Instead, he's supposedly frustrated with how soft the league has become. The biggest issue for him is the flopping, the fake whistles, the acting. He believes the game is starting to look more like entertainment than real basketball. And according to the rumors, he pointed directly at LeBron as the player who helped normalize it. But here's where things got awkward for LeBron. The same style he helped popularize is now being used against him. Players like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the young Oklahoma City Thunder squad have completely mastered drawing soft fouls. And during those tough games against the Thunder, LeBron looked furious watching the refs hand out the same calls he once benefited from. It completely backfired. Some people even believe those playoff losses exposed the problem perfectly. And supposedly, Wemby used that moment as proof that the NBA's foul-baiting culture is hurting the game itself. Then came the quote that had the entire San Antonio Spurs organization talking. According to reports, Wemby said, "The so-called king needs to respect the legends." That line instantly shocked everybody. You almost never hear young players talk about LeBron like that. But the reason Wemby cares so much about older eras actually makes perfect sense. He's obsessed with basketball history. He studied countless hours of tape from Jordan, Shaq, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He treats the game like a student studying legends from another generation. And once you look deeper, another name starts showing up everywhere in this story: Greg Popovich. Popovich has spent decades defending old-school basketball. He's constantly criticized how dependent the modern NBA has become on three-pointers and weak defense. And according to people around the team, he's been teaching Wemby to embrace toughness instead of shortcuts. By 2026, that influence is obvious. Wemby doesn't play like a typical modern superstar hunting easy threes all game. He dominates with post moves, footwork, and deadly mid-range shots that feel straight out of the 90s. While everybody else is spacing the floor and begging for fouls, Wemby is attacking the paint and hitting turnaround jumpers that almost look like Tim Duncan came back in a new body. And honestly, it feels intentional. Like he's trying to prove that old-school basketball would still dominate today. Meanwhile, LeBron is busy defending his legacy on podcasts while the legends of the game are slowly rallying behind Victor Wembanyama. And this level of support is rare. People are comparing it to the respect Kobe Bryant used to get from the older generation. It's almost like the legend saw LeBron's comments and decided, if he won't respect basketball history, maybe this kid will. And once Charles Barkley joined the conversation, things went nuclear. Just this May, Barkley went on an all-time rant and used Wemby as the perfect example to completely destroy LeBron's claim that today's NBA is harder than the past eras.
And this guy is like 4 inches taller, and he's athletic. It can shoot threes. I mean, it is a beautiful thing to watch.
But if you really want to see the craziest plot twist in this whole story, you have to look at Shaquille O'Neal. Because not that long ago, Shaq was probably Victor Wembanyama's biggest critic. Every chance he got, he would downplay Wemby's game and call him nothing more than a tall guy with skills. But now, everything has changed. Fast forward to 2026, and Shaq has done a complete turnaround. He's now calling Victor the first truly perfect big man the sport has ever seen.
I said this to you and the guy. I think Wemby is the first perfect big man that's ever created.
But Shaquille O'Neal didn't stop at praising Victor Wembanyama. He actually used Wemby to push back against all the things LeBron James said on that podcast. Shaq made it clear that Victor plays basketball the right way. In his eyes, real dominance means battling in the paint, attacking contact, and playing physical instead of just standing around the perimeter like many modern stars do today. And honestly, that comment felt like a direct shot at the style of basketball LeBron was defending. But it's not only the legendary big men backing Wemby now. Earlier in April, Victor won the Magic Johnson Award, and Magic Johnson could not stop praising him afterward. Magic talked about how Wemby carries himself with the rare level of maturity and focus that he feels is missing from a lot of younger players today. You could tell Magic saw something familiar in him, that old-school obsession with the game, not the fake social media grind, not the non-stop attention-seeking, just pure love for basketball. Even Kevin Garnett jumped into the conversation. And when a player as intense as KG starts praising you, people listen. Garnett basically said Wemby has that dog mentality that this era desperately lacks, the kind of fire that can change the league. And when KG started talking about Victor becoming the global face of the NBA, a lot of fans took it as a message aimed straight at LeBron, almost like the older generation is quietly saying the torch is finally ready to be passed.
He's changing how we're looking at the post position. Victor is bringing a different level of guard slash small forward to the big man position.
But having legends support you is one thing. Walking into the arena and actually outperforming the guy who calls himself the GOAT, That's a completely different level. While LeBron James is focused on recovery programs, business moves, and protecting his image, Victor Wembanyama is living like basketball is the only thing that matters. And honestly, that's what scares people the most about him. It's not just the 7'4" height. It's not the insane wingspan. It's the mindset. Victor feels like a player straight out of the 90s, trapped inside a modern superstar's body. While most young athletes are chasing followers, partying, and building online brands, Wemby is reportedly spending his free time playing chess in the rain and reading old books just to sharpen his focus. That level of obsession instantly reminds people of Kobe Bryant, the kind of player who treated basketball like a life mission instead of a career. And that's why older NBA legends are connecting with him so strongly. Victor doesn't seem interested in the celebrity lifestyle that LeBron helped make famous over the last 2 decades. He's not chasing Hollywood attention. He's not trying to become a fashion icon. He just wants to dominate basketball. To a lot of old-school fans, he feels like the last hope of bringing the NBA back to its roots. Earlier this season, there was that viral moment where Victor was seen crying after a huge win. Some people online mocked him for it, but they completely misunderstood what was happening. Those weren't weak emotions. Those were the tears of someone who poured everything into the game. The same kind of passion people remember from Michael Jordan after winning in 1991. That hunger, that emotional connection to basketball. Fans believe it's disappearing from today's NBA. What makes this even crazier is how Wemby handles his body and training. In a league where load management has become normal, Victor is doing the opposite. His recovery routines are reportedly extreme, but not because he wants more rest. He's doing it because he wants to stay on the court every single night. People around the league say he spends late nights doing strange balance drills, stretching exercises, and injury prevention workouts just to make sure his body can survive an entire season. He doesn't want to become a part-time superstar. He wants to become a legend, and that puts even more pressure on the rest of the league. Because if a 7'4" player can fight through the schedule and still show up constantly, fans start wondering why smaller stars need so many nights off. But the tension with LeBron gets even deeper once you look at how they actually play the game. According to advanced stats from the 2026 season, Victor has one of the lowest foul baiting rates among superstar players. He refuses to rely on flopping or acting for whistles. Meanwhile, critics say LeBron helped create the very culture that fans are now tired of watching. There was a huge moment recently against the Oklahoma City Thunder where Luguentz Dort slammed into Victor during a drive. Victor immediately got back up and kept playing without even looking at the refs. Fans instantly compared it to LeBron's dramatic flop against the Denver Nuggets just weeks earlier, where he stayed on the floor after very little contact. And that's when people really started switching sides in this debate. But the biggest moment came in February when the San Antonio Spurs faced the Los Angeles Lakers. Victor completely took over the game. He dropped 40 points and 15 rebounds in only 26 minutes. He was hitting fadeaway jumpers over LeBron, sprinting across the court, and even pinning LeBron's layups against the backboard like it was nothing. The entire game felt symbolic, like the NBA was witnessing a passing of the torch right in front of everyone's eyes. But according to people around the league, that was only the beginning.
It's worse during the 2026 All-Star Media Day. A reporter probably...
Then came the moment that really shocked everybody. During the 2026 All-Star Media Day, a reporter asked Victor Wembanyama a question that was clearly meant to create an emotional headline. They asked him if he would cry when LeBron James finally retires. Victor didn't laugh. He didn't smile. He didn't even pause. He just looked straight ahead and coldly answered, "No." Then he moved on like the question meant nothing. That single moment instantly blew up online, because fans saw it as a message. Wemby is willing to pour his emotions into basketball itself, but he's not shedding tears for someone he believes disrespected the game's history. To a lot of people, that answer felt symbolic, like Victor was saying LeBron's era is finished, and he has no interest in joining some farewell celebration tour. He wants the throne for himself, and he wants to earn it the hard way. But here's the scary part for the rest of the league. This isn't only about attitude anymore. The numbers are starting to back it all up. Victor isn't just playing well. He's putting up stats that people haven't seen since the days of Will Chamberlain and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Meanwhile, LeBron spent most of the season trying to explain why the modern game is supposedly harder than ever. But while all that debate was happening, Wemby quietly entered one of the rarest clubs in NBA history, the 35-15-5 club. 35 points, 15 rebounds, 5 blocks, in a single playoff game. Before Victor, the only names in that group were Hakeem Olajuwon, Shaquille O'Neal, and Kareem. That's the entire list. And Victor didn't just barely make it. He did it while leading an elite defense with a rating people haven't seen from a dominant starting center since the mid-1990s. What makes this even tougher for the LeBron side is how Victor gets his numbers. LeBron keeps talking about how today's spacing makes basketball more complicated. But Wemby is out there playing with incredible control and patience, almost like a giant version of Michael Jordan. During his huge game against the Minnesota Timberwolves this May, Victor shot over 70% from the field. That's not empty stat chasing. That's domination. He's not forcing bad shots just to look flashy. He's picking defenses apart with pure efficiency. And while the entire NBA is obsessed with launching endless three-pointers, Victor has mastered something most modern players abandoned, the mid-range game. He's turning the 15-foot jumper into a weapon again. At the same time, he's also creating for teammates with a vision of Magic Johnson, all while cutting down turnovers. That's why so many people see him as something completely different. He plays like a throwback superstar from the past, but inside a body built for the future. And every dominant performance keeps making LeBron's "today is harder" argument look weaker and weaker to critics. But the conversation gets even more uncomfortable once durability gets involved, because this is where a lot of fans believe the LeBron narrative really starts falling apart. Over the last few years, LeBron and many other stars have blamed modern athletic demands for injuries, rest days, and load management. But then people look at Victor, and suddenly those excuses stop sounding so convincing.
It's a different game now. It's a totally different game. And, it's a lot of soft tissue injuries that's happened now because of it.
But here's the part that really makes people stop and think. Victor Wembanyama is projected to finish the 2026 season with more than 70 games played. Now think about how insane that sounds. A 7'4" giant with a body that should logically break down faster than anyone else is staying healthier than the 6'9" superstar who spends millions every year on recovery and conditioning. That comparison instantly brings older fans back to players like AC Green, who famously played 1,192 straight games without luxury recovery centers, personal chefs, or futuristic treatment programs. Victor's mindset seems very simple. If you love basketball, you play basketball. Earlier in these playoffs, he reportedly played through a twisted ankle without making a big public scene about it. No dramatic social media posts. No stories leaking to the press about pain or injuries. He just showed up and kept dominating. Meanwhile, critics say every time LeBron James loses a major game, the same pattern appears. Suddenly there's talk about injuries, recovery concerns, or photos of him dealing with physical problems. But Victor stays quiet. And more importantly, he stays on the court. That difference in mentality is exactly why this whole GOAT debate has started shifting in a major way. Because if the next face of the NBA, a player who actually dominates in today's era, openly respects the older generations and believes their basketball was tougher, then LeBron's argument suddenly becomes a lot harder to defend. And now even the legends are starting to make that clear publicly. Earlier this year, Charles Barkley shocked fans by updating his all-time rankings and placing LeBron all the way down at number 7.
I've always said LeBron on my list, he's number 7 all time. I got Wilt, Kareem, Bill Russell, Michael and Oscar. I got Kobe 6.
But here's the part that really makes people stop and think. Victor Wembanyama is projected to finish the 2026 season with more than 70 games played. Now think about how insane that sounds. A 7'4" giant with a body that should logically break down faster than anyone else is staying healthier than the 6'9" superstar who spends millions every year on recovery and conditioning. That comparison instantly brings older fans back to players like AC Green, who famously played 1,192 straight games without luxury recovery centers, personal chefs, or futuristic treatment programs. Victor's mindset seems very simple. If you love basketball, you play basketball. Earlier in these playoffs, he reportedly played through a twisted ankle without making a big public scene about it. No dramatic social media posts. No stories leaking to the press about pain or injuries. He just showed up and kept dominating. Meanwhile, critics say every time LeBron James loses a major game, the same pattern appears. Suddenly there's talk about injuries, recovery concerns, or photos of him dealing with physical problems. But Victor stays quiet. And more importantly, he stays on the court. That difference in mentality is exactly why this whole GOAT debate has started shifting in a major way. Because if the next face of the NBA, a player who actually dominates in today's era, openly respects the older generations and believes their basketball was tougher, then LeBron's argument suddenly becomes a lot harder to defend. And now even the legends are starting to make that clear publicly. Earlier this year, Charles Barkley shocked fans by updating his all-time rankings and placing LeBron all the way down at number 7. But if you really want to watch LeBron James lose control of the conversation in real time, you have to go back to that ugly April 2026 game against the Houston Rockets. The Los Angeles Lakers desperately needed that win. And instead of delivering, LeBron finished with only 10 points, shot terribly from the field, and turned the ball over again and again against a Rockets team that wasn't even viewed as a serious title threat. That's why fans immediately started asking questions. If today's game is supposedly easier for stars because of spacing and modern talent, then why did LeBron look completely lost in one of the biggest games of the season? At the same time, people started comparing it to old footage of Michael Jordan, still dropping huge scoring games at 40 years old without any of the offensive advantages players enjoy today. And the criticism didn't stop there. LeBron's defensive numbers this season were also heavily criticized, with many fans calling it one of the weakest defensive years of his career. But somehow, the off-court conversation became even messier than the basketball itself. Because now critics are starting to say LeBron's camp is becoming obsessed with preserving his image and keeping his name attached to every possible record. That's where Rick Booker entered the picture. Back in March, Booker went viral after accusing LeBron of hanging on partly to chase stats and records instead of focusing purely on winning. And one moment especially fueled that conversation. During a blowout game against the Washington Wizards, the Lakers already had the game completely under control. Most veteran superstars would normally sit and rest at that point, but LeBron stayed on the floor late into the game and eventually secured another triple-double against bench players. That clip instantly spread online, and critics called it one of the clearest examples of stat padding all season. Suddenly, people started wondering if LeBron knows his dominance is fading and is now trying to protect his legacy through numbers instead of championships. But then the discussion took an even darker turn. Some insiders started suggesting that LeBron's constant modern NBA is harder argument might not only be about himself. They think it could also be about protecting Bronny James. Because if today's NBA can be sold as the toughest and most complex era ever, then Bronny's struggles suddenly look more understandable instead of disappointing. For critics, that became the ultimate PR strategy. And when fans compare that situation to Victor Wembanyama's rise, the contrast feels massive. Victor grew up with a mindset that everything has to be earned through discipline, sacrifice, and obsession with the game. Meanwhile, critics believe LeBron has spent years trying to shape the league around his own story and protect the people closest to him. And according to many fans online, that strategy is finally starting to lose its power, because now there's a new superstar entering the spotlight. One who openly respects basketball history instead of trying to rewrite it. And if Wemby is already causing this much tension at only 22 years old, people are terrified about what happens next. The biggest question now is simple. Can LeBron's legacy survive if more and more players start agreeing with Victor Wembanyama? Let me know what you think in the comments.